Continue to track the latest coming in. We're getting to these visuals of the Indian Prime Minister arriving at the Hyderabad House. It's an opportunity for India and Russia to reset the relationship, as several experts we've been speaking to have been saying. Vladimir Putin to hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister Modi, a host of issues on the table. The India-Russia 2+2 ministerial dialogue, as we have been telling you, has also served as a crucial step forward in that partnership. Let's take a step back and tell you more about the significance of the Russian president's arrival in India, the messaging behind this visit. The President of India arrived in India for that traditional annual summit. This is the second time that President Putin is stepping out of Russia after having skipped visits to the G20, the climate summit in Glasgow. He also earlier rescheduled his tour to China. At least 10 bilateral agreements are lined up to be signed. That in itself is an assessment of how crucial this visit is and what lies ahead. The two leaders aim to boost the India-Russia strategic partnership. The delegations, along with also emphasizing on the importance of this relationship and taking it forward. This in-person visit to India highlighting the significance that Russia has placed on the bilateral ties with its traditional ally, India. Now, this bilateral summit, important to highlight here, comes despite New Delhi's growing proximity, growing closeness to Washington. Let's tell you more about what's on agenda. India and Russia expected to sign 10 bilateral agreements in various areas, including some semi-confidential ones following the talks. The meeting also likely to see the presentation of the S-400 air defense system to India. Some areas that will also be difficult to ignore, given the fact that both Russia and India have made their way towards different partners as well. So it's been an interesting balancing of this equation, given the ongoing geopolitical rivalry between the US and China. So that's the multiple junctures at which this relationship stands, given the ever-changing geopolitical situation, more so over the last few months, and the implications that that has for the India-Russia relationship. Let's also tell you about the 2+2 dialogue. The Defense Minister of India spoke about the steady progress of the engagements between the two sides, while the Russian Defense Minister expressed his hope for an enhanced regional security relationship and the emphasis that the two sides have really laid on taking this relationship forward on multiple issues. India and Russia also signed agreements for the AK-203 assault rifles through the Indo-Russian Rifles Limited. They've also sealed an agreement on military and technical cooperation from 2021 to 2031. And before commencing the 2+2 dialogue earlier in the day, the Russian and defense ministers of the two sides had a one-on-one bilateral meeting where they also stressed on the importance of the strategic partnership between the two sides. The Indian Defense Minister and his Russian counterpart also co-chaired a session of the Inter-Government Commission on Military Technical Cooperation. So it's been a day of extremely significant engagements already. These visuals that we played out for you just a short while back of the Indian Prime Minister arriving at the Hyderabad House. A crucial few hours ahead as far as the India-Russia equation, the strategic partnership, the relationship is concerned. And our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibul, has been keeping a close eye every step of the way as far as this crucial visit is concerned. Let's go straight across to him. Siddhant, let's first establish for our viewers the very significance of this visit, the messaging behind the same, the very fact that the Russian president is making this visit after having skipped several global events.
Well, it is significant essentially because this is the second visit of the Russian President Vladimir Putin outside of the country this year. He has been to Geneva earlier this year for a meeting with the US President Joe Biden, and now coming to Delhi to meet the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So there are optics involved in this and symbolism as well. But also essentially remember that given the situation in Russia because of the COVID crisis, he still managed to come to Delhi and have and hold the meeting, the summit, the India-Russia annual summit, something that was postponed. In fact, last year, due to the COVID crisis, remember, New Delhi has this summit level, annual summit level mechanism only with two countries. One is Russia, and another is with Japan. With Japan also, there have been delays because of the COVID crisis. But the Russians managed to come here is in itself a message of how Moscow treats New Delhi amidst a changing geopolitical scenario. And it has been a long day, essentially because of a lot of engagement. There was this bilateral meetings, both the defense ministers and the foreign ministers met. Then the 2+2 meeting, the maiden 2+2 meeting, where of course the four ministers met. This is the fourth country. Russia is the fourth country with which New Delhi has this mechanism. India already has this mechanism with Australia, Japan and US. But all these three countries are Quad member countries. So Russia stands out because it is the first non-Quad member country with which India has this mechanism. So a lot of symbolism involved, but a lot of significant outcomes also expected as the day progresses, because we can expect 10 pacts to be signed. Of course, there will be military pacts as well, and joint statement, each word of the joint statement will be weighed.
Right, and talking about those engagements earlier in the day, Siddhant, let's take our viewers through the key takeaways from that 2+2 dialogue.
Well, the 2+2 dialogue almost lasted for 2 hours, and there were conversations on every subject possible. In fact, there was a briefing as well by the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, in which he said that Asia-Pacific region was discussed because the Russians have made it clear that they are not very happy with the Indo-Pacific vision. And he lashed out, in fact, at the AUKUS Pact involving Australia. He said that will Canberra fulfill its obligation of a nuclear-free South Pacific. He also talked about Troika being expanded with the Indians and the Iranians in the grouping for Afghanistan. He said that Taliban needs to work on an inclusive government. So host of subjects being talked about by the Russian foreign minister, but the Indian defense minister clearly mincing no words against China, saying that that there were problems when it comes to India's northern borders. And we know that when it comes to India and Russia and China, this is a dynamics which has its own geopolitics. Russia has to choose. This is something that many experts have been talking about, but Russia has made it clear that it's not going to mediate between the problems of the Chinese and the Indians. Both are dear and close friends, and both are also important defense partners as well for Moscow.
Right. Let's also talk about how this is a very interesting time at which the summit comes, Siddhant, given the ever-changing geopolitical situation, also the very fact that New Delhi's proximity, closeness to Washington, and the geopolitical rivalry between the various sides when it comes to this region, specifically managing that relationship with China has been a tricky affair, and which is why this meeting, this summit, comes at an extremely significant time and will be watched out from different parts of the world, specifically Beijing.
Well, of course, Beijing will be closely watching the outcomes of the meeting between the Indians and the Russian. And of course, the Russian also trying to make sure that they have a larger Asian perspective, not just being overly reliant on the Chinese. Because remember, the Chinese either treat a country as a junior partner or as an adversary. And this is something has been a hallmark of the Chinese foreign policy. So what the Russians have been doing, have been increasing their engagement with India. In fact, when it comes to to Russia's far east cities like Vladivostok, Russia needs manpower, and it is keen that India sends more manpower for Russian far east. And even though they can be easily invite the Chinese, they have been doing so, but they have been preferring that the Indians come there first because of their suspicion when it comes to the Chinese as well. Because when it comes to the geopolitics of these three countries, it is of different tangent altogether. We saw the foreign minister of these three countries meeting recently, and the joint statement, the lengthy joint statement talking about various issues. So while the engagement continues, the Russians are using this opportunity to make sure that they can further the relationship with New Delhi, which is broad-based and has been time-tested relationship. There's a sense of nostalgia when it comes to India-Russia relationship from the Soviet times, how in fact in 1971 war, it was the Russians who came in support of the of Indians, and the new state of Bangladesh was created. And even as we speak, India is celebrating the Maitri Divas along with the Bangladeshis, because this year is an important year for both India and Bangladesh in terms of the 1971 war. So this relationship, despite the world changing very fast, despite the emergence of China and a very aggressive China, this relationship has remained steady despite New Delhi becoming closer to Washington as well.
Right, on that note, let's play out for our viewers, Siddhant, the statements that have been delivered by the foreign and defense ministers of India and Russia.
Prospects on the similar lines in the future.
Well, S-400 deal doesn't have only symbolic meaning. It has very important practical meaning for Indian defense capability, and the situation is basically underway. The deal is being implemented. We witness attempts on the part of the United States to undermine this cooperation and to make India obey the American orders, to follow the American vision of how this region should be developed. And our Indian friends clearly and firmly explain that they are a sovereign country, and they will decide on whose weapons to buy and who is going to be a partner of India in this and other areas. It is confirmed, and it was mentioned today as well, that the Russian-Indian relations have been characterized and remain specially privileged strategic partnership. And certainly the meeting of the Military Technical and Military Commission and Defense Cooperation Commission, which took place this morning parallel with my bilateral meeting with Minister Jaishankar, is manifestation that this cooperation is in the interest of both countries.
Our discussions today will address the emergence of multipolarity and rebalancing. We look too at the consequences of over-centralized globalization. The long-standing challenges remain even as new ones emerge. Prominent among them are terrorism, violent extremism, and radicalization. The situation in Afghanistan has wider repercussions, including for Central Asia. West Asia or the Middle East continues to present hotspots. Maritime security and safety is another domain of shared concern. We both have a common interest in ASEAN centrality and ASEAN-driven platforms.
Russia-India defense cooperation is important for the relations between our two countries during these times. I am confident that Russia and India will help in enhancing regional security.
Progressed in an unprecedented manner in recent times. We hope that Russia will remain a major partner for India in these challenging circumstances.
Going back across now to our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, who has been tracking all those developments. Siddhant, as we were discussing earlier, the India-Russia equation starting at a very crucial juncture, and this summit serves as a crucial opportunity to take that relationship forward. Give our viewers a better sense of what India's expectations are at this point and what it hopes to achieve at the end of this summit.
Well, India's focus with Russia has been to increase engagement whether it's space, whether it's military, in almost every domain. In fact, connectivity as well. Remember, during the last visit of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Russia for the annual summit, he visited Vladivostok. There was a big ticket announcement on connectivity between Vladivostok and Chennai, and this is a practical implementation of a very unique way of connecting the two countries, and that too through South China Sea. But also when it comes to space, remember India's manned mission Gaganyaan is something that has seen training of the 4 cosmonauts in Russia, and this happened despite the COVID crisis. The entire training went very smoothly, and they're back now in India. And of course, defense partnership, a much celebrated partnership between the two countries. There have already been announcement regarding that, and S-400 is something that has been talked about for a long time now. The contract, in fact, was signed during the President Putin's last visit to India in 2018, when he visited India in much more happier times in terms of pre-pandemic era. Now, of course, there is implementation of the contract despite, again, pandemic. The units are arriving here in India this month, and there will be deployment as well. So a whole host of issues India will be focusing on. Counter-terror remains a dominating factor. Do expect mentioning of the Pakistan-based international terror groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed in the joint statement by India and Russia. And this is something that's going to rile Islamabad. So do expect Islamabad to come out with statements as well. But it clears the air regarding relationship between Islamabad and Moscow, because many have been saying that the two countries are coming closer at the cost of India. But President Putin has made it clear many times that when it comes to its closest ally in South Asia, at least, it remains India. It will remain India.
Right. Stay with me, Siddhant. Let's also take a listen into what strategic affairs analyst Fred Weir had shared with us just a short while back.
Clearly indicated the biggest takeaway from this is the continuing determination at the top on both sides to develop this relationship. It is a traditional relationship. It was warm and strong during the Cold War. It has faltered somewhat since. The world has become so much more complicated. Other forces tugging in different directions, but you see Putin making a priority of this, albeit pretty quick, visit to India indicates the importance that he places on this relationship. And it is important in the Russian, constellation of priorities. They're in serious tensions with the West, with NATO, with the United States, and they are in developing a relationship, a counterbalancing strategic relationship with China. And for Russia not to get dragged into any bipolar situations, a variety of other relationships is awfully important, and India is the main one. So I think that there's a lot of concern that Putin will be bringing to the table to keep this going.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.